Hello, everyone.
Okay, we are actually live now.
I think so.
Still learning how to do this.
Do you want to introduce us?
Yeah, okay. So hi, I'm Jacqueline. This is Christine, and we are the Book Buzz. So just a little bit about us. We are a club Book Buzz, and we just pick a book each month. And at the end of the month, we do a live discussion. So this month, we picked The City of Brass, and we got our new Book Buzz stickers, which I love. Yeah, and do you want to just give kind of like a quick rundown of what this book is about?
Well, this book was my pick, actually, which I was super excited about. It had been recommended to me by a few people based on the books that I like. It kind of follows two characters. We get the story from their perspectives. So the kind of main one that you start off with and is most of kind of, I'd say, the lead and kind of what it's advertised as is a strong female named Nahari. And she is this thieving con artist who can actually kind of help people a little bit because she finds out that she's got this magical blood. And she accidentally calls a genie to her, who becomes her companion because he kind of tells her that things aren't exactly what she thought and some of those legends and myths are actually true. They have some challenges and they eventually make it to the city of Brass, which is kind of this magical city where she might have been born or where she came from, that's hidden behind a veil, and then kind of navigating who she is there, because she is kind of a rare person despite kind of meeting these other people that are similar to her. And then on the other side, literally the other side where they're going, kind of on the inner side of the city, we have this perspective from Ali, which is actually a prince, not the one that's going to become the king because he's not the eldest. Who's kind of very brash and very, very morally driven, and has these strong ideals. And he's just trying to navigate kind of the politics of the city and what it means to rule the city, because there's been lots of war, and there's different oppression and different kind of classes of citizen. And he doesn't necessarily agree with the king. And then, that's
a good run.
Too much away if you haven't read it. So
it's a big book. There's quite a lot in here, and especially because there's a whole new glossary of terms that you have to learn, and it's a lot.
Over 500 pages, so it's a big read for a month.
Yeah, especially a month I had quite a lot going on. But do we want to just chat then, I guess, about our overall thoughts? If we liked it, if we, how we felt about it.
Sure. Do you want to go first and tell us what your rating would be too, just generally?
Sure. I would say I'd probably rate this a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. I have not read a fantasy book in quite a long time. And I think, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. And since Game of Thrones ended, I have the novels also. I haven't really delved deep into any fantasy. So it's been a while. And what I liked about this and what I was excited about was kind of the palace politics and learning about all the behind the scenes characters and kind of this, if there was going to be palace scandals or secrets and stuff like that, and what those would be. So we see a little bit of that in this. There's a lot of politics that go on in this book, and it's I kind of just gives me reminiscing feelings about Game of Thrones. So that's what I was kind of excited about. I really enjoyed this. I think it was kind of tricky. It was a tricky read because you have to kind of keep referring to the glossary of terms until you kind of grasp what these terms are. For example, Oshin and what the heck is that? And just all the terms.
All the different languages.
Yeah, there's different religions, different tribes. Just kind of wrapping my head around the characters' backgrounds. So Prince Ali and his brother Muntadir, like they're not from the same mother, so they're half siblings, and just like trying to wrap my head around, okay, he's all these different tribes, like the Ayonle
And
tribe,
the mixed tribe, which adds a layer of complications.
yeah. So it's kind of tricky, but once you get it down, it's really interesting to learn about the history of Daevabad and all that. So, and it's kind of fun that we are getting introduced to this with Nahari.
Yeah,
she just kind of like as going into this as blind as we are.
So I would give it a similar rating. I would give it more of a 4 out of 5. Not quite as high, just because she does do a good job kind of building this world. I really liked that it was not kind of your typical fantasy where it was like vampires and elves. It was kind of this different thing that I haven't read like many stories about genies and stuff, and some of the legends around that, while still creating new things like new magical beings. And then so she just spends a lot of time with that, and because of all those politics, like I didn't really find the action started until like the last third of the book. So it was a little slow for me at the beginning, but even the fact that she had Nahari be introduced to that world, I think was extremely helpful, just because it is very complicated and has all these like almost sub themes of like oppression and what religion is. And there are these different religions and different beliefs. And even within each of those religions, how much you believe is like being discussed here and different among the characters. So it's very complex, but it's really good, I think. And I would have scored it higher as part of a series, just because there's so much time building that world. So I'm really excited for the next book.
That was one of my questions for you. Were you going to continue on, and you think, and read The Kingdom of Copper and The Empire of Gold?
Yes, because it was a cliffhanger ending.
It was, yeah.
I was like, oh, things are really happening. It's over.
Yeah. I was also going to ask you too, since you're quite an avid fantasy reader, what you kind of touched on it a little bit, but in terms of like comparison to other kinds of books, its uniqueness or like the magic system, even maybe just like the setting and cultural background in general.
Yeah, I really liked that it was kind of this different setting, because so many times they make up a totally brand new setting, or it's just like there's a lot of fantasy books where it's set like in our world today. So I like that it was kind of more historical, and this whole Middle Eastern culture, I can't specify which, I don't know enough about that. But I like too that it was kind of very authentic, where some things were very factual, but then also like it was part of the whole story. So it's little things where it's incorporating things. So like, for example, when she gets to the city of Brass and they're serving her food, and they're like, oh, we know this is like a dish from Cario that you might like, and it's one of her favorite. Just those little things where it's not necessarily the point of the story, but it's infused throughout of the story. And I like that she still, despite providing a lot of description, it's not like every detail. So it's still like very much left to your imagination, which I appreciate. For example, when she's describing one of the gardens, she just goes on about how it's lush, and there was like a big dome overhead and these birds fluttering about and overgrown. And I like that it wasn't like there's these flowers and this, and like it was over the path and it was cobblestone or something, and that I can kind of pick those details out for myself of what I think it would look like.
So yeah, that's something you were mentioning last month, and I totally can see that with this book. There was like just the right amount of like description, and I think she does a really good job. I think that's one of the praises of this book is the world building, is I really loved the descriptions, the ones that we got, where she was describing like what the throne looks like and the gardens of the palace, because that's setting the atmosphere of where we are.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there were scenes where there were less
Yeah.
details, but you're kind of, like you said, it's just enough so you can kind of imagine it
It
yourself.
sets the tone and atmosphere without like providing everything about the setting. Like
Yeah,
it's just here's the general feeling, and I appreciate that in world building, that it's still a little bit up to me. That's why I would rather read the book than say watch a movie where it's decided for me.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I really liked, I think, yeah, one of the criticisms I've seen of this book, and maybe it's something that you and I feel, is like the first chunk of this book. I feel like it's a necessary part, but I think, I don't know how well executed it was, because I just felt like all of a sudden we were in Cairo. It starts off in Cairo, Egypt, and
Yeah, it
Nahari
starts off
is,
super fast, those first couple pages.
yeah, yeah. She's, gallivanting the streets of Cairo, and she's a thief. And I think if I went back and read it now, it'd make a little bit more sense, because you're just still being introduced to like all these new terms, and like you're like, what's a jinn? And
Yeah.
yeah, and then all of a sudden, she summons a demon, which is Dara, and he takes her away on this journey to Daevabad.
Yeah.
I think it was like I really started to enjoy it right when they were on the ferry going over to Daevabad. I was like, okay, here we go. Like, we're starting. What's gonna happen now?
That's when you get more into the politics anyways, which you like.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, maybe we could chat about the characters then, because there's a lot of characters. I feel like there's a lot of side characters that, there's a lot of side characters.
And some of those side characters are becoming bigger, I'm sure, in the next book. What were your thoughts on Hari, the kind of main female character that, when advertised, is definitely the main character?
Yeah, I think she's great. I think there's a lot of realistic reactions to what her situation. Like, we're going on this journey with her. She's from the human world. She's going into this like new fantasy world, and there's a lot of times throughout the book where she's, always like bewildered about what she's seeing. So yeah, I do really like her as a character. She's very, headstrong, and I like that. I like the friendship that her and Ali like developed together. I thought that was really cute. And every time I heard his name, like, I want to sing Prince Ali. But I liked that friendship and those scenes together where, she's like very curious about wanting to learn more about her past, and Ali being a scholar, it's like they can kind of connect over books. And also, I think she teaches him, they learn a language together, I think. Or he
she's
teaches her to read.
him. I forget what language.
It's there's so many. Gezeri,
teaching her to read though.
Boston or something. Yeah. It's a language that because she's really good with languages.
Yeah, she knows like so many languages.
Right? It's just like
super fast.
Yeah, she's just like.
I think that's part of her magical blood. So.
Okay, well, we don't like. There's 3 books, so there's still a lot of unknowns. I think that we will get to know, but I liked all the characters. I think there's some characters I don't know if they're going to become bigger or not, like Zainab. So there's Muntadir, Zainab, and Prince Ali.
Those are the royal family.
Like Zainab.
What is his name?
Ghassan.
I was going to say Garcian.
Ghassan. King Al-Qatani.
Yeah.
They're basically like the usurper family of this kingdom. Yeah. So the Nahids were like the original rulers, which is Nahari's bloodline, and the Qatani family is the usurper family. What's interesting about this book, though, is like I don't know who to trust, and I don't know like who to root for. I'm like, because our main character loves Dara.
Yeah. And then the other main character hates Dara. So Dara is her companion, Genie, that's taking her there. And like we have all these stories about how terrible he is, but then she clearly loves him, which I in itself thought was a little bit of a weird development. It was nice the fact that so there's a little bit of a love triangle starting to happen. It was nice, kind of
like forced.
I don't know. So basically, she has fallen in love with Dara, and Dara's, I guess, fallen in love with her. I don't know how much that is actually a two-way street. So it was nice that she fell in love with kind of that companion as opposed to the prince, which happens in so many fantasy stories. But I don't necessarily like the relationship between her and Dara, just because he kind of, I'm just so confused with him as a character.
He's strange.
I didn't like how he kind of doesn't listen to her or respect her, like, oh, I'm going to kidnap you. You have to come now, or I'm going to like kill your friend. Like, it's borderline starting to get abusive, where he's just so controlling, almost like gaslighting her too, and not kind of valuing her. So I don't really like that relationship.
Yeah, it's an odd relationship because he's this demon that she's summoned, and he seems like he's so responsible for her in a way to deliver her to
she
her.
Feels like she owes him, and like that's why she does everything for him. Well, he brought me here and showed me this world, and it was kind of like all of suddenly they were a thing, and I was like, this, like I didn't see the build up to it.
Yeah, like the cave scene on their journey to Daevabad was like very like, oh, okay, this is happening.
Which I can kind of see sometimes the stress of the moment, but then like, oh, now this is definitely a thing. I was like, I don't know. But at the same time, with Allie, kind of, I guess, starting to feel for her, that's kind of the feeling I was getting at the end, which was, I think, a little different than the feeling I got before, where at the beginning I thought like he was maybe asexual or something, which would have been great representation, but then maybe not. I don't know. Which, yeah.
He seems just like at the beginning he's like a very just brooding, he's very broody and kind of moody, and he seems to always be in like a mood.
Yeah, he's very like, I find he's very like strong-willed, and he has his kind of set opinions, which is kind of nice. You see him grow as a character and realizing that it's not so black and white. Yeah, so I liked both him, and Nahari is also growing as a character, just like at the end where she's like, no, I can't just run and save myself. Like, there's other people, and that's kind of nice because I really feel when you're reading this story, like they're young adults. Like they say they're almost 25 or whatever, almost their quarter century, and I'm like, no, you're like 17. Like you've got a little bit of growing up to do. But it makes it really kind of believable too. Some of the mistakes and the feelings that they're going through. I'm like, that was so
makes
like a few years ago.
More like the age around 17.
Yeah. Even though, but like maybe that's part of the fun of the story. But that would actually be kind of inconsistent, I think, too, with her going on about how it's in Cario centuries ago. And I'm like, no, you would have been 25 was pretty old. Like,
I kind of forgot that it was century, like the 18th century.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Is, I guess, kind of one flaw of the world building. It doesn't really continue with some of those things that we would have expected in the 18th century. But it didn't really deter me from the story. Just thinking about it now. It's like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be set there.
Speaking of fun, though, I feel like maybe the one criticism or one of the criticisms that I have is this book seemed very serious.
Yes.
Would you agree? Like there were some lighthearted moments, but I feel like there could have been a little bit more, like maybe a character for like comedic relief, or like a little bit more kind of like,
or just
like we're fun in this, we've just discovered a magical world, all of the magical characters she comes into contact with, it's like
life and death.
Life or death, or there's like danger, but where are the scenes like just like wonderment, like, and wow, like, this is a magical world. Like,
or like,
like a little bit more.
Yeah, So like she's discovering her magical abilities, and it's like, oh, she accidentally kills someone, and then she wants to practice immediately. And it was kind of funny because she's practicing on like bananas and that, but you could have like made it a little more funny. Like someone walks in and is like, "Why are you stitching a banana?" And like,
Yeah,
she
like
can
a
be
little bit more
embarrassed, like
would have been nice.
just a little, yeah, a little bit more
It's a
kind of
little
like,
serious, yeah. And Nahari always seemed to be stressed out about, Nisarine is the elderly woman who is kind of training Nahari in the infirmary, and she seems very. It's weird, like they're almost teaching her to be like a nurse in a way, like she's doing stitches and she's
yeah,
trying to learn like intricate procedures, but her healing comes from like her magical abilities
yeah.
to be able to just kind of feel over top of a wound.
I think that's the point of it, though, is that she can do that with just like general humans, and then this is showcasing that it's different. There's more to it. Like you have these fire salamanders in your body that you have to get out.
Right. And I think that's what Nisarine and her have kind of an argument where she reveals to her that the king is kind of stalling her progress in a way.
He wants her as just a puppet, not actually helping the people.
I think that's my favorite character relationship. I want to see what happens between Nahari and the king, because that ending scene, I was like, ooh, like this is her throne. This is her ancestral home. Like,
yeah,
beware, Ghassan Al-Khatani. Like,
what is gonna happen? Also, just like there's a lot of twists at the ending where it was like some of it you kind of saw coming, but then others it was like, wait, what? They're like these characters, like you made a deal with them and that's how you got the throne? What are you talking about? I need to read the second book. Like
I also feel like I need to go back and read a bit of that reread, because I was really kind of plowing through the audiobook. I feel like I could definitely go back and reread some of those political explanations.
And I do really like kind of that this story is much about her and her political kind of gain, and like how she's being used as a pawn, and like what actually happened, because you have like what is the truth, and you have all these different characters with their different opinions. But I very much like how this story is about like this fight for power and like oppression. And I could very much like identify with Ali and like how he isn't really oppressed. I mean, he's the king's son. He is a half tribe. I forget what they call him. He's from two tribes. He's mixed.
His mother was a Yonle from the Iran.
So like he's definitely experienced some discrimination in that, but just like his like desire to help, but sometimes making it worse. And I think that's very realistic, and she does a good job of kind of representing the world in that way, is how sometimes you do more damage and it isn't necessarily that black and white, where it's like this will help them. Well, not necessarily, kind of thing. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Political, like.
Where do we think this is going then? Because if you can kind of just visualize, she is Shafit, which that's also a term that we had to learn, that it's like half human, half Deva.
Yeah. Half
Deva.
magical.
Half magical. I always like equate it to Muggle from the Harry Potter book.
Okay, that's exactly what sorry, there's sun coming in the window. That's exactly what I was thinking. It was like, oh yeah, you're like Muggle.
You're a Muggle.
Mudblood kind of thing. And they have slurs and everything too, which I do think the author does a really good job of explaining kind of slurs. I took a picture of the quote and I thought it was a good, where is it? Maybe I didn't take it. Maybe I wrote it down. But she does a good job of explaining, like, and I think that's something that's really valuable. Oh yeah, I did write it. This is kind of rough paraphrase because I did not want to write out the whole quote. It's not just a word. The slur has been used to demonize our tribe for centuries. but what is authorizes charges when they do whatever they want to take our homes and our properties and imprison us.
So that was Mizarine, right?
Yes.
When she calls her a fire worshiper.
Yes. And I thought that was like well put, and the fact that it is like, you may not think anything of it, but it's a slur, and you should be called out. And I like that she called her out on that too.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, like speaking of like the fire worshippers, I thought it was really cool. I don't know how big, I don't know if this is like a trope or anything in fantasy, but how they're explaining how the devas are made from fire. Yeah. So like, the different elements.
Yeah.
So we as humans, we are made of earth. The devas are made of fire, and I think at the end, what happens to Ali? He's now
water.
He's of water now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. And I thought there's some interesting foreshadowing there, though, just with how much he likes swimming and he's okay with it. And everyone's like, how do you like swimming? Like, what are you doing? So that was kind of fun. Just like, oh, yeah, look, now you're of the water. So, you know what's fun about this book, if you do want to read it with other people, is they actually have questions in it.
Do they? What? Yeah. Where? At the back?
A reading group guide.
Maybe I don't have the same one.
The PS section at the end.
I have acknowledgements.
It's active
acknowledgements. So I might not have the same version as you. You have like the one with the tab at the front.
Oh yeah.
What are the questions?
Okay. There are some questions. You've kind of already discussed some of them. Okay, here's one, kind of going to what we were talking about, Dara, and how he's this complex character and we have different perspectives on him. Were you surprised when you learned of his dark history as a warrior? And do you think his relationship will survive these revelations with Nahari?
His relationship?
Yeah, with her, as she learns the dark revelations.
I mean, but doesn't he's at the end?
But is like, he?
I don't know. Like, because don't they have like a necklace or something?
Well, there's the ring that he wore that gave him power, something that keeps shining that they notice. But then there's also in the like palace crypt or whatever, apparently his wristband.
Oh yeah,
that is apparently his like token. So I'm like, which one is it, and why is he so different? Because he was a slave, and did a whole bunch of terrible things. But apparently, he also did terrible things before he was a slave, and was maybe betrayed by his own kind.
So the question was,
were you surprised by some of those revelations, and do you think his relationship with Nahari could survive those revelations as she learns about them?
I don't think it was a surprise because a lot of the characters were talking about what he did and the history of Dara Nahavanhush.
Yes.
And what he did. So I feel like I'm not too surprised. What I'm most surprised is it's almost like Nahari doesn't want to hear the truth.
Yes, that surprised me just because she's so much about the truth in that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, and I get her perspective, like it's in the past. This is who I know as a person now.
Yes.
And I identify with that because I'm very much like, it happened in the past. Like, did they apologize? And then also she definitely got the experience like in his head when she touched him of like what it was like being a slave and the terrible things and all the guilt that he felt. So I do think she has a better understanding of like, it wasn't really his choice, at least in regards to that. But I don't know. I don't know how she'll feel just because she's kind of...
It seems like, I feel like their relationship will survive in a way because it seems like when he was kind of kidnapping her to leave Daevabad, she was like, I will never forget this night. And then 5 minutes later, she's like, I'll never forgive you for this. And then 5 minutes later, she's doing everything to kind of save.
I think it's a struggle. And it's
Yeah.
going to depend, I think, how much she almost values herself and like kind of lets go that he brought her there, because that does color her vision so much. And the fact that he saved her life in that. Um, so I don't know. I don't really want the relationship to survive. I don't think it's a healthy one.
I don't either, no.
It can just be,
He needs to work on himself for a bit, I think.
yeah. Okay, do you come away feeling any of the characters were true heroes or true villains? I'm going to say no, just
No.
because there is so much politics, and I still don't know what necessarily the truth is, and who did what, and what was right and wrong. And it stressed me out a little bit, because it's very much like our society today, where there's no clear answers. And I was like, I just want a clear answer, and everyone to live happily.
Yeah.
Maybe by book 3.
That is what I loved about Game of Thrones, and I feel like that's what a lot of people loved about Game of Thrones, is that all the characters were very morally ambiguous, and then sometimes they would do awful things, and then they would turn around and do something really great. And then, like, Jaime Lannister is that, I don't know how familiar you are with Game of Thrones, but like, he was that classic, everyone like hated him. You know, he pushed a 10-year-old child out of a window, and but then, like, by the end, you know, he's starting, you kind of learn his story, and like, yeah, all the characters are so morally ambiguous, and you don't know who to trust, or you don't know who to root for. And that was what was kind of really fun about Game of Thrones. So there's kind of a bit of that going on here, and I like it.
I think it's very much like that, because it's kind of them battling themselves of like, do they do like what is personally best for them, or like what is politically best for everyone? And that's, I think, a decision that everyone struggles with. Like, I could donate all my money to charities that deserve it, or I can go buy a new water filter to go camping. Like, what am I going to do? And that's very, very minuscule compared to what they're dealing with. But it's that same kind of political or personal. Which one are you going to go for? Which is why you can identify with them.
Yeah. I'm really interested in, I want to learn more. I want to read on, because I'm interested in the king and Ghassan, and learning more a bit about him and how they took over the throne. And there were moments where, you know, he's explaining to Ali that, because Ali was the second son, right? So I think that they can only have one
heir,
or one heir. But there was something that there was 2 assassins sent for Ali, and he murdered him with his own hands because he wanted to keep his son.
Yeah. But then at the end, he like banishes him, which is basically like writing death. Spoiler alert, little late.
Kingship over blood is,
yeah,
what.
But at other times, he seems to do blood over kingship, which I think makes him also a good character. Is that personal versus political? That's an ongoing theme. Which one are you going to pick?
Exactly. So I'm kind of interested to learn more about what is his motivations, and what does he want? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what happens from there.
I think those are kind of the
main questions. We did everything else.
Other ones, but we kind of already talked about those a little bit. Well, here's the first question, actually. So it is told from the 2 perspectives, right? Ali and Nahari. Whose story did you find more compelling, and why?
Compelling. Like Ali versus Nahari. Okay, maybe what about you? I'll have to think about that.
I think maybe a little bit more Ali, just because there's this more political, and there's more to it. And it's a lot more of that world building and understanding what's happening and the greater kind of setting of the scene. Where I found Nahari's almost like a limited perspective, just because it is all new to her and she doesn't understand anything, which is useful to us as the audience. But hers was still compelling in the fact that it's what's giving rise to like these mysteries and giving me questions. So both were compelling, but probably a little bit more, I think, Allie's, just because I want to know all the other things, and there's the politics and dynamics, and I think I identify a little bit more with him.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same. I probably liked Ali's storyline a bit more, just because I'd like to see Nahari maybe in the next coming books maybe come into her own more. She's still learning how to use her powers, and I loved the scene where Ali is teaching her how to like create fire.
Yeah.
And from her hands or something. And she's like, so she's not quite very confident yet in her own abilities to heal. She doesn't really have a place. She feels almost like not a prisoner, but she doesn't really have any. She's trapped. Yeah. She's under the watchful eye of the king, and she doesn't feel amongst friends there.
Yeah.
So,
and I think she seems a little bit younger because she's not really acknowledging her mistakes. There's that one moment where she like accidentally kills someone that she's treating. Mm-hmm. But other than that, she doesn't really acknowledge any of her mistakes or kind of what else could happen as a result of her actions, like what the consequences are beyond even just her. So I feel like maybe she is, again, what I was mentioning before, just kind of younger and even mm-hmm. younger than Ali. And maybe that's why it's like, I'm like, just think it through, guys. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, kind of thing.
But yeah, so that's kind of maybe why I would pick Ali, because I do find his storyline interesting with him wanting to fund the Shafi and, you know, going to that orphanage. And he has that heart where he can see a better future for their city and for the people living there. And
everyone in the city.
But he doesn't have that power yet. And there was a moment where I thought Muntadir was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, well, if he dies, then does that make Ali heir? And then he would have like more power, and what would he do with it? And so
even just the relationship between the two of them is interesting. Like, you have this guy who's going to be king, who is really into drinking and women, but maybe not at the end. Maybe he's not. Surprise. But not that much of a surprise. And then you have the kind of this younger brother who's like going to be the head of your like security, who's very well loved by the soldiers. Like, even the soldiers, when they're fighting, are like, who do we protect?
The warrior.
The one is the warrior who leads us and like we've known and grown up with, and the other one is going to be the future king.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is it? Like, you could see right there. And so I read a piece of like the prologue kind of thing. This one has at the end.
Oh, see, I don't have that in this.
So this one has like an extra prologue at the end, and I flipped through it because I was like, "What is this?" And I feel like it's already. I didn't want to read it all. I just want to go into the second book. But it was the brief paragraph that I read was very much about the jealousy that he experiences and how the king was.
Ali?
No.
Yeah.
So he's very jealous, and like Ali is clearly favored. And like he's giving examples of like this favoritism, and then you see it right there, and you're like, oh, like there's some conflict there. And then how the king was going to marry off Zareen to some other northern tribe, to some guy that was like 50 years older than her, and he is basically explaining that this king guy will just be like, the king is like, oh no, I'll ask her permission and see what happens. And then Murtaza is just like, nope, he's just going to do it no matter what, if it was convenient, because it's kingdom over personal, except for when it comes to Ali. So I'm very curious as to see what we'll see from that relationship.
And why the favoritism.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It makes me excited, and I'm going to have to read the other books.
I definitely, yeah, I'm 100% going to read the other books.
Mhm.
Have you seen the beautiful cover for the Empire of Gold? Like,
I have it.
have to read
I'll be right back. I will show you
You
guys.
have it?
Mhm.
Ooh, I want to see
Wait, is Empire of Gold the second one or the third one?
the third one. The Kingdom of Copper is the second
I
one.
don't have it because it was only in hardcover, and I want the set to all be softcover to match.
Oh yeah,
I'm
you,
tired of
yeah.
unmatching.
I love the I think it's the UK editions, but I can't find them here anywhere, or even I'm trying to order them online, but
Yeah.
the UK editions are also beautiful.
They're just pretty covers.
They
Um,
are.
it's nice, and I like this book. It was a good one.
I wonder if the YA fantasy has a trope for like trilogies. I wonder if the second book is gonna be, like this was definitely the
Yeah,
introduction, the beginning. The second book, the trilogies follow kind of a pattern in a
I
way.
feel like
So
it has to be because of that world building. Like you have to build the world in
yeah,
order it to be like a true fantasy. Otherwise, like, why bother?
right. So
The ones that
kind of,
I enjoy have
yeah,
like a complete world that you can understand and kind of throw yourself into.
true.
I
But why
really
is it
wonder.
always three? It's always three. It's like not 4, 5,
There's a couple
2.
that are four. There's
Yeah,
a
which
few.
ones?
Like the
Yeah.
Eargon and Eldest series, or it's the Inheritance series. Although that one was supposed to be 3 and then ended up being 4. So
She couldn't fit it all in 3. Or he.
I want to see though if this book will ever be made into a TV show or movie.
Ooh, I think
Sure.
we need to see that.
My
A
sister,
Middle Eastern fantasy,
yeah, like
like
there's a market for it. I think.
I think for
It is
sure.
so different and like not the typical ones that you see, and it's nice, and I think could provide good representation,
For
um,
sure.
which would be really
I would
cool.
love to see
And like my sister said that apparently Halulu picked it up like 4 years ago and was talking about doing it, and I'm like,
it.
fingers crossed. I don't know how
Oh,
accurate that is now, but that would be
well,
super cool.
don't they normally do like a pilot and then the like Hulu can what determine whether or not they want to buy it? If it's been 4 years, it's probably
Probably not, but
look up into that because I would love to see that. I just don't know how popular of a book this is, though. Like, I haven't seen too many people
I don't know.
online talking about it. Like, some people are. I think if it were to get more popular, then maybe it might be turned into a TV show. But you have to remember, like, Game of Thrones was written so long ago,
Yeah,
and it took a while, I guess. Well, the books were really popular. Um,
it's got to
but
gain steam. Like this is only it was written in 2017,
yeah, it's very new still.
so it's only like 3 years old. So like, yeah, it's still I think gonna
It
build
has
steam. There's also though I think too, there's a lot of people who just did not like this book.
really.
Like, I read some reviews online and they just did not like, and I totally get that it took so long with the world building and that the plot was really in that back end of the book where things actually happen. So there's a lot of critiques of that, and then also a lot of people just don't really like the characters or find that the characters change, which they do change, but I see it as a growing aspect.
For the whole series or just the one book?
Just the one book.
Yeah. We'll give it time.
Go read it again. Maybe they'll change their opinions. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I will recommend it to people. I think it's
Yeah,
good.
me too. I think what they can have kind of creative license though if they were to like she's created such a like a beautiful world and it's very clearly outlined in here that I think if they were to make it into a TV show or even I don't know if it would be
well it would go.
material to make it a TV show like or would it have to be movies?
I feel like
Either one, they have creative license and to make changes, but the world and the building is still there. Yeah. I would love to see it. I think it could be so well done.
Now, how did you so last month we read City of Girls, City
Yes.
of Brass now. How do you think this book compared? Which one did you like better? What was similar? What was different?
Um, They're very different. So it's hard to compare. I think maybe enjoyment level, I probably enjoyed reading this a bit more because I haven't read a fantasy in forever. And you could just, I like stuff where you can tell you're building up towards something and it's going somewhere and you're kind of in that anticipation of like, ooh, what's going to happen? I didn't get a lot of that from City of Girls. Like I didn't have a like this, ooh, what's gonna happen next?
Yeah.
Or I was kind of just reading it to get to the end to see what was like overall like lesson of Vivian's storyline. So it's a very completely different. I feel they're different, and but I feel like I enjoyed this one more. It was less like reflective. Like I find contemporary can be very reflective in a way, but this is more like it's entertainment.
Yeah, this one is more entertaining.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that, where this one was way more entertaining. I was wondering what's happening. I was more kind of involved and invested in the storyline, where the City of Girls took me a really long time to get into. As we know, I wasn't necessarily even a huge fan of it to begin with. But I felt like the City of Girls had kind of more applicable, like easy to grasp life lessons and pieces of advice, where this one is very reflective of the real world still too, especially those power dynamics and like oppression and slurs and like clearly racism. But it's kind of more hidden. I don't know if it will come out more and give us lessons, or is it just that like causing you to reflect on the world?
I think especially with everything that's going on right now, I feel like there will be some lessons to take from this. I think sometimes fantasy, it's hidden, but you can definitely extract lessons. Star Wars, for example. We studied, it was one of the things we had to watch for my popular literature class, because apparently like Star Wars was a I'm blanking right now, but it's kind of like a commentary on, well, it's the classic like good versus evil, but also like rebellion against, like what's the word I'm looking for?
A dictatorship.
Oppressor. I'm looking for a word. Political person who is oppressive, but I can't think of the word right now.
I don't know what the word is.
Dictatorship.
Okay,
couldn't think of it. It's been a long day. But there's like totally some like lessons you can take from Star Wars, and it being like a commentary of its time and the things that were happening in those times when it came out. So yeah, I think it's like more hidden, but there.
Yeah, and I think sometimes these fantasy books have those kind of broader themes more clearly, where even though it's like hidden there, like it's clearly this is a book about like oppression and what people are going to do about it. We don't know yet. Where like, for example, City of Girls, like there was definitely some like a little bit of sexism in it, kind of, and just kind of the journey of finding your own, but it was made more individual based and kind of personal, which is why I think it has those clear pieces of advice for you as an individual, where this one is more almost indirectly a commentary of like what's happening in the world. And I think that is generally what happens when you are building a world. It tends to represent the real world.
Exactly. And what's interesting is, like you were saying, there's clearly oppression happening here, and what are they going to do about it? But also to what extent you should be following what your ancestors did, or what even your parents, being the king, what they're like the decisions of the king, your father, and what you want to do as Ali. They all have their own stance on what's right and what's wrong, and what shouldn't be done. And just because they've been living, the Shafi have been oppressed. Like, should that still continue?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely interested to see how their world is going to deal with it.
Yes. I also thought it was really interesting some of the obsessions in here of people that have with revenge and how that will
Yes.
be. Some of
And
them are very dead set on revenge.
yes. Yeah, and taking that's definitely a big theme, and the path of revenge and vengeance, and how far they're
It's
going to
too
take
far.
that.
How far is too far, and what can you do, and what is? It's yeah.
Why exactly do you know? Like I said, I only read through this once. I feel like it would definitely call for a reread. Why exactly they are oppressing the Shafi? Like, why they're not allowing them to? Like, there was a whole explanation of that. I think more towards the beginning.
It's because it's exactly what it is in the wizarding world. I like that you said it was a muggle. It's their half blood, and the whole reason was because the one tribe brought in people, the tribe that Dar's from. I don't remember it. I'm terrible with the politics side of things. Um, that's what I struggle with remembering. Like, I get the feeling, but like who's who? I should just make a map and write everything on it. So it does come with the map. But like they liked silk, so they brought in people as silk traders, and then one tribe was like, no, you can't, it's impure, because they started to like have sex with their silk slaves and people, as tends to happen. So then the other people, the Nahari, came in and wiped out that town, like liberated it through Dara, destroyed that town, but then it also destroyed all the economics. Which then created resentment, and that's why the tribes were kind of fighting. And then you have this whole rebellion, even more, and they're just not as pure. They're not pure magic, so we don't care about them. But we'll kidnap them and raise them as our own kids if they can pass, but not.
Yeah,
which is very much a reflection of the real world.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's terrible.
Awful.
There's a lot of things in this book, and I'm like, I don't understand how that can happen. But
and how the king is just he's okay with it.
Yeah. He's like, it's not, I'm pure. I'm better. So.
Yeah. So do you have any other questions? Or I feel like I asked questions or anything else we want to chat about.
Nothing.
We're almost at an hour, so I just wanted
to I touch base pretty much everything I kind of wanted to say and all my thoughts. Yeah, so like in general, my summary of this, my thoughts on this is that I really appreciated the Middle Eastern setting and how it felt very authentic and incorporated kind of these different political versus personal battles, as well as religion, where religion is infused in it, but not like the reason for everything. Like it's very good, like world building and representative still of like an actual world and how it's not this and that. It's more complex than that. And I do like the characters. I'm excited to see where they go and that they're not necessarily good and bad and that you have these conflicting views. It makes it very interesting and exciting and leaves you wanting more. Critiques would be kind of that it was very slow, just the pacing, and that the language was challenging for me because it wasn't just new magical things, which was wonderful with new names, but then also all these other languages that I'm just not familiar with. But yeah, I do like it.
Yeah, I mean, they're completely made up. So if you could speak Devasti before this, we might have an issue.
I am not that creative enough to come up with any of those names. Well, Ali, I feel like I could have figured out.
Ali Zaid.
See, full name, no. Just Ali, I can figure that one out.
Yeah.
Okay, how would you summarize
the audiobook for the description or the pronunciations, or this whole session would be for just been us trying to figure it out, which kind of was.
That is the one thing. I wish the glossary had how to pronounce the names.
I love all the names. They're just when you first see them, it's like and there's a lot of them. There's Wajed. Well, that was kind of my critique. I think you went through a really good list there, like your pros and cons. It was kind of situating who these side characters were, like Wajed.
Mm-hmm.
Or Jamshid was Kave's son, but then I forgot like who was Kaveh.
But maybe he's not his son. Like,
is he in the Royal Guard? Like, I feel like I skipped details in my head. Like I said, I might need to go back and kind of look over those details and how important those kind of side characters were.
Yeah, and some of those side characters and their names are so similar too.
Yes.
Which I think too is like totally normal. Like, there's how many Sarahs out in the world?
Of course, yeah.
Or like Christina, Kirsten, like,
yeah,
it's realistic.
I wish
as a reader.
Yeah, I wish I could have kept those a little bit more straight in my head, and hopefully some of the side characters become more important in terms of like the palace secrets and stuff that happens, because it just reminds me of like, I'm going to use Game of Thrones again, like the side characters who are always plotting against the king or trying to they have their own motives to like politically put one group on the throne over the other. So I was hoping that some of those side characters will have a role in future with all that stuff. Kind of mainly we were staying within the family of the Quantanis and Nahari and Dara. So hopefully the world maybe like expands a little bit politically. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the other
like the twists at the end, I definitely think that
we're gonna see
some of those characters are gonna become a lot
wherever they're sending out. Sorry, yeah, you were saying we might get to see some other worlds maybe on the map.
Yeah, just based on what they're saying at the end there, like, I do think it will expand into those side characters.
I'm just pulling up the map there.
Yeah.
So maybe we get to see other worlds. Who knows? Or not other worlds, lols. Other
other countries. I feel like we're going to learn more about the tribes, because they're all living in that city, but there's still the other tribes. So there's definitely going to be more political stuff too, and I think it's going to it was very much just what's happening in the city. I think it's going to grow beyond what's in the city.
Can't wait.
We'll see. And we have another good fantasy read for next month.
Yeah, I got it.
I was going to say, I have it. I don't know. It's over there.
I lost my BookBuzz stickers though, so I can't put a BookBuzz sticker. I'm going to have to order more.
Oh no, I can mail you some.
Okay. And I'm going to get some more. But yeah, so for next month, this month, July, we're doing the 5th season, and I have no idea what this is about. Yeah. But we're kind of on a fantasy kick right now.
Fantasy kick, and we are trying to pick more local authors and authors that are from minorities, just to be supportive of them.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the first. I also believe this is a trilogy.
Yes, it is.
We're starting all the trilogies.
You are right. Fantasies are trilogies. So I like fantasies, which
it's a clean way to structure them, I think, Yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. Hopefully we're definitely, I think if we can keep it on schedule this month, last Saturday of July, which I don't know when that is, what day it is.
July 25th.
On Instagram.
July 25th. That's when that will be.
July 25th. So I better get started. I also have the audio for this as well. It helps me get through it faster.
I couldn't get the audiobook, but I have a bunch of camping books. So that book will be coming with me out into the
Where are you taking it?
Algonquin and the French River. I have 2 trips, backpacking and canoeing.
Beautiful spots to read.
Hopefully I have time and don't get lost paddling or hiking.
Please don't. We want you back here to discuss something.
You'll be back by the 25th.
Okay.
It'll be late, but I think I can hopefully be back on time.
So hopefully this recorded. This is our first time using StreamYard, and I guess, thank you for watching. I guess
We'll see you in
see you next
a
month.
few weeks.
I think next month. My brain is still in June.
So yeah. And if you have any comments or thoughts you want to share with us, please let us know. Comment, I guess, or send us a message. Or if you have a
we want
recommendation too for a book. Pardon?
I was sorry, I keep starting to chat when you chat. We want to discuss the books that we're reading with you, so feel free to send us a message, or
if you want to hop on when we do these streams.
Yeah.
Happy to. Yeah, we just want more people to talk and have these different voices and opinions. That's kind of why we started this whole thing, is to learn and expand our perspectives, and we need more people to do that.
Exactly. It's not just, us two sitting here talking about it. We definitely want to engage with
young white adults.
Yes.
Who are both female.
Yes.
And work in the same field. So
exactly. It's pretty we're
a little limited, so please join us. Okay.
All right, Christine. I'm gonna end the broadcast, and I will see you at the end of this month.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Hopefully it worked.